Yeah.
Speaking of that, not only are you doing all these amazing things professionally and personally in your world, you are also running for office for
Yes,
Texas House
ma'am.
District 15,
Yes, ma'am.
which encompasses the woodland. Those that are not familiar with this area, but it's the Woodlands and Northern Spring. It's a pretty broad area
Yeah.
in southern Montgomery County.
Yeah.
Uh,
So basically, what I tell people is think south of the San Jacinto River and east of 2978. Everything that's Montgomery County, within those boundaries. That's District 15.
so what in the world would have prompted you to, in addition to all these other things that you're doing that are very valuable and have great impact, what prompted you to get into this role of campaigning and political life?
Representation. My mom used to say, and this is actually it's an old saying, that usually when you're not at the table, you're on the menu. And I
Ah,
saw that time and again here after I moved. I moved here with my family in 2015 from Montgomery County, Maryland to Montgomery County, Texas.
wow, isn't that so?
And one of the things that I saw and that I thought was interesting was that people were not holding their elected officials accountable. And I joined my daughter's PTA, and one of the meetings I asked, they were saying, "Oh yeah, and our independent school district is going to pass the budget at the next meeting." And I'm like, "Oh, so who's going to represent us?" And they're like, "No, we don't go." I'm like, "What?
Mm.
You don't go? Like, what is the budget? Oh no, we don't look at it." And I'm like, "Really?" And it was sort of a given. Like I was the annoying one who was asking too many questions.
Right,
So
right,
I
right.
went to a meeting of Conroe ISD, and it was hilarious because the husband of one of my husband's colleagues, so my husband works with a woman whose husband was at the Conroe ISD board meeting, asked me when he saw me, "Lorena, what are you doing here?" And I'm like, "Well, I heard that they are um, talking about the budget." And he's like, "Oh, this is not Maryland, Lorena. This is different." And I'm like, "I still want to hear."
Yeah.
So, it was looking at how complacent we had fallen. And then again, it's a wonderful community. It's a
Mhm.
great neighborhood, but I want to keep it that way. I don't want it to go sort of south. And one thing led to another. Um, and also, I am a firm believer hello, my son just walked in. I am a firm believer of being represented. Again, if you're not at the table. No, thank you. I am in the middle of a Zoom that's being recorded. Yeah, thank you. Sorry about that.
Love him.
And again,
Love
they're home with me. So, um, and I forgot to put the do not disturb sign at the door. And anyways, so I went to the school meeting, and there was nobody there, to the board meeting, and there was nobody there. Yes, please go ahead, sweetie. Please. Yes, good. I am so sorry about this. It was
Oh,
last,
this is
but
good.
in goes with the territory. And then somebody started to explain to me how the independent school districts work, and in terms of funding, and what happens at the independent school district level. Basically, when it comes to the ISD level, it's already cooked
Mm.
from the state, from Austin. And I'm like, wait a minute, representation, we're not being equally represented. It's a school district where most are women, most of the students are women, yet there was only one woman, Melanie Bush, on the board, a board of 7 people, and only one man of color. And I'm like, yeah, this doesn't look good. But then I looked at the legislature in Austin, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's even worse. So maybe I should run for that. And so here I am. Long story short.
But isn't that the way? I mean, I think for women, that's where, because it hits us at home, right? I mean, the very decisions that are affecting our children, and as hard as we work in our home, we're still impacted by the decisions of a school board, of institutions around our communities. And so you're right. I mean, in a healthy democracy, you need representation. You need to have voices that represent. And I agree. There's many communities that have grown very fast and have not really necessarily caught up to that growth as far as representation. But it's time. It's time to be able to speak to the needs of a changing and growing population, for sure. So you have on your website the 5 steps to make government work, which I thought were just an amazing way to kind of spell it out. And it makes sense for people who maybe not very political, because it just, again, it speaks common sense. So could you talk a little bit about those 5 areas?
Well, and what I tell everyone is these are the 5 steps as I see it, but it depends on what you're focused on. And I have to say that the cherry on the pie for me to run for office was actually the floodings. I don't know if you remember 2016 and then 2017.
Yes.
We had just moved here in 2015. 2016, we have the, Mother's Day and then Memorial Day, or the other way around. And then we have Harvey hit. That's when you and I kind of like really, really bonded.
Yes.
And I'm like, okay, what are people going to, and it was nowhere like being discussed. What is it that we're going to do going forward? Like, are we going to raise the bed of like Houston so that it doesn't happen? Like, everybody's talking about recovery and, kind of trying to figure out what to do on reconstruction. And I'm like, what about prevention? And then again, we go to that point of work on prevention and work on being cautious. And then you won't have to work at the other end where things are kind of ugly and muddy and what have you. So my 5 steps, the way that I have them, I focus on the things that make me tick. We have better, strong public schools. We have good access to healthcare, because quite frankly, healthcare should not be tied to whether or not we do have jobs. It should be tied to the fact that I am a human being, and that other than dying, one thing that I have for sure is that I may get sick one day.
And certainly this pandemic is revealing to us how interconnected we are, right? We're extremely interconnected.
Yes. And then, let's figure out what it is that we're going to do about flooding, because we know that we live in a flooding zone. We know that whatever plans, the flood plans we had, we're having to redo them again because they're no longer working. And we know that it's going to get worse, not better. So what are we doing other than saying, yeah, we're cleaning up the mud and we're doing this and that? Okay. And I live right next to a community that floods so much, and it's Timber Lakes, Timber Ridge. And so many conversations have been had about Timber Lakes, Timber Ridge. What are we going to do? Are we going to buy the people out? Because what's the saddest part is that there's part of the neighborhood that is rental properties, and part of that neighborhood that is residential property for where they have property owners. And the worst hit part is where the people who own the property are the ones who live in the worst part. They reconstruct, they rebuild the very same place, very same floodplain, and then it hits again, and then they're in the same place again. And they have nowhere else to go. So like, what are we gonna do about those people? And the other thing is, I'm sick and tired of just having and both extremes, the left and the right, being so dug into their positions that they are not willing to talk to others. And this is where, the nurturing part of me and the let's talk part of me comes into play. Let's do bipartisanship part of the deal, because quite frankly, I live surrounded by Republicans. I don't seem to have a problem with the Republicans because I know that there are many points on which we do agree. Right. And it's okay for them to be Republicans and for me to be a Democrat, as long as we respect each other and as long as we work together on the points that we agree on, and on the points that we disagree on, we find some common, point of agreement, and then we take it from there. Why is it that we are so intent in starting from the points that we disagree upon? That's going to take us nowhere. Right. So making bipartisanship the rule is a big one for me. As a small business owner, of course, now I have my solo immigration practice. I do understand that business has to be at the table, but I do understand that it has to be with certain limitations, because a person who goes as a representative to Austin is not only supposed to go as a representative of the big companies that are willing and able to pitch in large sums of money to their campaigns, that they owe as much to the single owner constituents who are single owners of those homes that flood every time that it rains, as that person is representing all of the parents and all of the students in those school districts that right now are having problems and trying to grasp what actually the school year 2020-2021 is going to look like, because nobody knows what it's going to look like yet.
Right.
But it's knowing that business has to have a seat at the table, that we have to talk to each other, that we need to have bipartisanship be a part of the equation, and then everything else. It's my 5 points, but then again, it's 5 points that are flexible.
No, sure. And I think that what you mentioned, as far as nobody knows what's ahead from this pandemic, we know how our economy is going to respond to it, how our culture is going to change, how our interactions with each other is going to change. But I will say the one thing that is absolutely essential, regardless of what happens, is that we find a way to work together and to be able to have those hard conversations. You're a mediator professionally also. I
also teach mediation at AU.
Yeah. And so, I think that, those skills are so important to be able to say, I'm not coming into a situation with a mind completely shut and a point of view completely shut. I give you the respect to speak your truth. And for me to receive it and to understand it and to respond. And I think that's so missing, I think, today in leadership. And I think women leaders definitely have an advantage in nurturing that piece of guiding communities. Because ultimately, even, if you look at the young people that have been protesting, and not just the young people, people of all ages, but especially if you look at our young generations, they're needing to be heard. They are asking, they are begging to be heard, that something is not working, something is not right. And I think that would be it's part of our American fabric. Here we are going to celebrate 4th of July. And, when you're talking about your daughter and how you're influencing her and how she challenges you sometimes. But to me, when I think of independence, that's what I think. It's, the independence of the human spirit, of being able to follow, the path that we were given, and be able to learn and grow along the way and speak our truth. That's an amazing right that we have in this nation. And so, yes, I think, nurturing that independence in speaking and in communicating and in working together is so important going forward.
Yeah. So can I do a shameless plug? It's not shameless plug as much as it is, I think.
Absolutely.
A little bit of empowering people. Register to vote. If you have not registered to vote yet, what are you waiting for? And one of the things that I was telling my children this time around, because now my 15-year-old daughter understands better, my poor 9-year-old son just has to listen to whatever I'm telling my 15-year-old daughter. It was not until 1955 that people like me, who looked like me, could vote. Do you realize that? And I know that 1965 for the young people looks so far away in time. It's not.
No.
My parents hadn't met in 1965. They met a year after that. Yep. And look at me, I'm still here. This is within our lifetimes.
Well, and this year we're also celebrating the 100th anniversary of the women's right to vote.
Yes.
Isn't that amazing? So, yeah.
Yeah, but women of color is what I'm talking about.
Yes, no, absolutely.
It was not until the 1965 Equal Rights Act. We need to continue to use it now more than ever. I do understand, because I was a young gal myself who did not register to vote, because that's old people do that. But nowadays, please don't leave it up to us, because we need your guidance.
Absolutely.
I think maybe as much or maybe a little bit more than you young people need ours.
Well, yeah. Sadly, yes, it's true. The world is changing very, very quickly. And obviously we haven't been living up to a lot of the things that we wanted to or needed to in 1965 when we made those changes. So there's a lot of work ahead for our young people. I wanted to share a couple more pictures that I have of, actually, it's of you. You can
Oh
see
boy.
that. Yes. So that was last December at our consortium meeting in the Kingwood area. So you were able to share some perspectives with our audience at that time.
Yeah,
And
that was more on immigration, right?
yeah, I don't remember. We were
think
talking
that's
about small
fine.
business. We were talking about small business and the Chamber of Commerce, the importance of chambers of commerce in our community.
Yeah, that's right.
And then another one is here you are at work with a small roundtable of one of the initiatives we were hoping to launch this year. Well, we did launch it, but because of the pandemic happened right after this meeting. Madres Raising Texas, which is one of the initiatives of my council to give voices to our diverse women and to promote civic engagement among our mothers in Texas, which is so desperately needed. So I greatly appreciate your help and support in these efforts. And yes, I mean, obviously we're all adjusting to pandemics and gatherings and things like that, but these opportunities are very, very helpful to me and hopefully to those that are going to listen to us today. So Lorena, thank you so much. And I do invite people to look you up. www.lorenafortexas.com is your official website for your campaign.
Yes, ma'am.
And again, I just want to thank you publicly for all the work that you've been doing locally. I know that you wear many hats. I know that it's exhausting because I sometimes don't know what's going to happen the next day, and we're always challenged to respond to major issues. But your voice matters. It's very important, and I thank you for having the boldness and the vision to speak for the communities that you love so much and for your family. So thank you.
If it weren't for inspiring women like you, I would not be doing it.
Oh, thank you. Well, hey, I think that's important. I think women from all backgrounds and cultures and political beliefs, we need to support one another. We need to be present for one another, and have our voices matter. I don't like when I walk into a boardroom and I'm the only woman. I don't like when I turn on the TV and I see people making decisions and there are no women. It shouldn't be there that way in 2020. And I think we're that generation that we're meant to change that, and our daughters certainly deserve more than that. So thank you again for being an inspiring voice for women in leadership, and all God's blessing on you going forward.
And yeah, God's blessing on you too, and happy 4th, everyone.
Yes, happy 4th of July. So thank you, Lorena.
Happy and safe 4th of July.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Wear your mask. Be very, very careful. Yes. So anyway, thank you. And we'll be chatting soon with more things to come. I think you have another interview coming up on Monday. So,
All right.
looking forward to that. So
yeah.
thank you. Have a good one.
All right. Thank you.
Bye-bye.